What's up guys, and welcome to another video game ranking. Now this is one of my favorite video game franchises of all time in Metal Gear Solid. Now I will say I have not played all of these games. There is a lot of sidequels and offshoots and some straight up weirdness like Metal Gear Solid Survive or even Revengeance, which I've heard is pretty good, but totally different genre. So this is gonna be an isolated ranking. This is gonna be just the Metal Gear Solid games and just the mainline ones, just 1 through 5. And I'm including Peace Walker on here because it's the only one that I've played and it actually feels the most like it kind of belongs mentioned alongside these other games, where things like Acid or, you know, all of the side ops and all of the other weird offshoots, not gonna be a part of this ranking. There's other ranking videos on YouTube that rank like all 20, 30 of these games. That's more for you. This is just talking about the Metal Gear Solid franchise. So with all that being said, hey, what is this? I'm right in the middle of a video.
Sorry to interrupt your mission, Cody, but I wanted to tell you about Skillshare. They're actually a sponsor for this video.
Oh, they are? Tell me more.
Yes, they are. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes for creative and curious people.
Well, now that you mention it, there is a lot of people sitting at home right now that I bet might want to scratch that creative itch that they have.
Anyone at home right now that has that creative itch can go to Skillshare and learn more about a specific trade or skill that they have interest in, like graphic design, illustration, photography and filmmaking, even music production.
I would actually be interested in that low-budget filmmaking class. I've been trying to think of an idea to maybe do a short film or some kind of a fan film. You know, I think that class might actually help me hone my craft a little bit, don't you think?
Yep, that's a great one. And the best part about it, the first 1,000 subscribers to click the link in the description of this video is going to get a 2-month free trial.
Now that sounds like a hell of a deal. I'll be sure to let everybody know.
No problem. Good luck with the rest of your mission. And remember, Skillshare believes in you.
And starting off at number 6, not gonna mess around, is Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Now, like I said with my Uncharted ranking, when you have a mobile game competing alongside console games, for me, it's kind of like bringing a toothpick to a gunfight. And this game is not as much as some of those game rankings to where you have mobile games compared to. There's a lot here that feels very console heavy. But Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker does have some limitations with the way that it was originally had with the PSP, with the one stick, and with the gameplay, and the world kind of had to be scaled down a bit. But I still enjoyed it. I didn't finish it all the way, which is another reason why it's lower for me. You could say that that's ridiculous to include it on a ranking if I haven't finished it, but I've played enough of the game to get vibes and get ideas of what I like and what I don't like compared to the other ones. So Peace Walker, really just because of that limitation of being on a mobile console, even with the console upgrade that they had on the little HD collection that came out, I had fun with it. It just had elements like the villains and the way that you have the boss fights where you're like taking away points now that just feels like stuff borrowed from other games that I'm not really a fan of, that didn't feel as classic Metal Gear Solid as I like to think of it. That holds it back a bit for me. Still a great game, but it is number 6 on this list for me. Number 5 is Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. Now, I tried to replay this game very recently. I actually planned on playing back through all these games if I had time. Some of them I revisited, still just jumped into the same nostalgia, loved all of them. Metal Gear Solid 4 is the one that I jumped back into, and I really struggled to get back into this game. With that being said, before I even dive into the negatives, this does have some of the series' best moments, some of the big payoffs, you know, with the whole Solid Snake versus Liquid Ocelot thing towards the end, bringing Meryl back in, bringing Eva back in, the whole thing with Raiden and Vamp. There's a lot of things story-wise going on in this game that are just big moments that definitely made this game awesome when it first came out. And I still have very vivid memories of, like, it was like chapter 4 or whatever, when you go back to Shadow Moses and it's recreated in the PS3 engine and you have that whole fight with Metal Gear Rex and Ray. That shit is awesome. With all that being said though, gameplay wise, this is my least favorite of the Metal Gear Solid games, even below Peace Walker for me. It's just those big cinematic moments that kind of elevated a little bit above Peace Walker, but a lot of the things that they included into this, I didn't really like at the time. It's the only Metal Gear Solid game that I only played through once, and I struggled to remember why. Quickly remembered when I played on PS Now, and you have the whole active camo thing I've never really been a fan of. The whole thing where you have to like place your hand against a wall and just stand there to be camouflaged as if the motherfuckers can't see you standing there like this, always drove me nuts. being inside of a wharf going on to where they initially advertised it to where you can align with one side or the other, then they didn't make it into the final game. Now it's just Metal Gear Solid style sneaking, but there's war zones going on, which never really felt right to me. Even later on in the game, I don't really care for the whole Drebin system to where you can get any gun that you want at the time. It all felt like things that took away from what I hold dear to Metal Gear Solid, just that very simple, classic stealth gameplay. This felt like it was just encouraging you to do all this crazy shit, and it just never really worked for me. I'm not saying that if I replayed through the whole game, maybe this would not be a little bit better by the end of it, but I couldn't even get to the middle of Act 2 before I was just done. I'm like, I cannot get back into this game. And for that reason, it's gonna be this low for me. I wish it wasn't the case. I just feel like Hideo Kojima always tried bold new ideas with these games that either really pissed people off or was like these brilliant moves. And most of the decisions that he made with Metal Gear Solid 4 regarding the gameplay just don't work for me. Number 4 is gonna be Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. Now, I went back and forth a lot between my number 4 and my number 3. Metal Gear Solid 2 is a game that I have played the living hell out of. It was a game that made me absolutely insane that I did not have a PS2 yet when it first came out. I think it was a good year, maybe a year and a half that PS2 had been out that I still did not have it because I was young, so I had to rely on my parents to buy it. So I had to beg and plead and do chores and everything like that. But when Metal Gear Solid 2 was sitting on the shelf and I would pass by it knowing that I couldn't play it, it was agonizing for me. When I finally did get to play the game, I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. The whole like tanker opening where you're on this ship, and it's a badass game. The way that they included this like first person aspect to it, wherever you're able to aim and kind of shoot around corners, the graphics, the way that they just updated all of the stealth gameplay from Metal Gear Solid. And then you get introduced to this little character named Raiden. And now I will say I have grown to appreciate Raiden, and I still love the gameplay of this game regardless who the skin is that you are playing as the main character. That was a big hit for me as a Metal Gear Solid fan, as a Solid Snake fanatic, that you only get to play as the hero of this franchise for like the first 10% of the game. I remember I kept playing this game for hours and hours and hours, and even though I was enjoying it, I was going, when do I get to play as Snake again? When do I get to play as Snake again? And then when you get to the end credits, I went, what the fuck? That's still a wound that is never completely closed for me. But getting away from that little stigma, the boss battles in this are awesome. I mean, they rival the first game. The whole big shell as far as an environment, I actually really liked it, how it kind of chained together and you'd have to kind of do that classic backtracking thing and go from one shell to the other. By the time you get towards the end, the story gets very weird, which holds it back for me. That's honestly the biggest thing that holds it back from being number 3, is when the shit starts glitching out and the game just gets too weird for its own good. The Hideo Kojima shit just gets cranked up to 11. But before that, it's just a very cool, familiar feeling game that has all the graphical upgrades, all of the gameplay upgrades that you would want, and I played the living hell out of it. I have a lot of great memories playing Sons of Liberty. Number 3, which I'm going to be bundling them together. I probably should have said that at the beginning to go ahead and get the controversy out of the way then, but Metal Gear Solid, Ground Zeroes, and The Phantom Pain are going together for me at number 3. I don't think it makes any sense to rank them separately. Ground Zeroes is essentially a demo, so it's the opening chapter, it's the prologue to the story of The Phantom Pain. They're one game to me if you're going to discuss them as individual games. So number 3, The Phantom Pain, Ground Zeroes. On one end, I think gameplay-wise, this might be the most fun that Metal Gear Solid has ever been. The open world aspect, kind of scaling back some of the Drebin stuff that I didn't like from 4, but utilizing it in a better way. At attacking these different missions in any way that you want. You can go stealth, you can go full-on balls out with these little mechs and just helicopters and shit. You can just blow the fucking place to pieces if you really want to. But I had so much fun playing this game. It had so much replay value to me. And I think just engine-wise, whether Hideo Kojima is there or not, if they ever wanted to just continue this franchise and do more games like this, I would totally be open for that. I would welcome it. On the other side of things, story-wise, it might be the worst of the Metal Gear Solid games. The whole thing with swapping out David Hayter for Kiefer Sutherland, I've never understood. I thought it was ridiculous. Any explanation they gave, I don't want to hear it. Kiefer Sutherland's great. Never felt like Snake to me. The voice just never worked. That's a big one. Then you had the whole storyline with, you know, the Skull Face, which just never really felt like he even came to be much of a villain by the end of it. And the way that the Outer Haven, the way that all of these kind of storylines kind of converge together, leading up to the final twist about there being two big bosses and everything. It's just, story-wise, this game really shits the bed. And you could tell that Hideo Kojima was just done. I mean, he had been saying that he's done since 3, and then, okay, I'll do 4, okay, I'll do 5, and Peace Walker and all those other ones that he did. But by then, this one you feel like he just lost his mind and just didn't care. He's like, all right, let's just tie this shit back together. Let's put some crazy shit in here. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. The whole drama with Konami and Kojima, you could feel kind of in the game. So I was torn. That's what almost held this to number 4 for me, because number 2, I have many more memories playing, but just how awesome the gameplay was with the Phantom Pain, I can't ignore that. Like, this game was just fucking awesome. Even Ground Zeroes, even a lot of people hated the fact that that was bundled separately, and I get it, but I paid $40 for that thing, and I played the shit out of just that one little chapter, attacking it a million different ways, and had a blast with it. Could not wait for the Phantom Pain. So my fun levels were at highs with this game. Story levels, unfortunately, number 3. Now these top 2, much like with my Uncharted ranking, were very close for me, to where there's some things that this game does that's phenomenal that holds this game back, and there's some things that this game does that's phenomenal that hold this game back. And honestly, it's one of those things where you ask me on Monday, it's this one, you ask me on Tuesday, it's this one. But right now, as of the filming of this ranking, my number 2 is gonna be Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Phenomenal game, basically perfect. I loved the whole aspect of the camouflage and these open environments, especially after they fixed the camera. I didn't hate the fixed camera as much as everybody else, but it certainly got better. But the whole storyline, this kind of very James Bond style storyline with Big Boss and the origins of that character and the villains you get in this. The boss battles in this game are arguably some of the best of all time, definitely some of the best of this franchise, which is a tall order. The whole way with you have the interaction with Eva and the introduction of Ocelot as a young kid, where he's not even necessarily an enemy, it's just kind of this weird rivalry. A very emotional climax and a lot of twists and reveals along the way. This is a game that's just endlessly replayable, and it's a marvel when you look at it and you're like, how the hell did you improve so much on the original in some of these and create a game that rivals that game? Because my God, Snake Eater is perfection in any sense of the word. But my number 1 is the original Metal Gear Solid. I have said numerous times that Metal Gear Solid and The Last of Us kind of compete for my favorite game of all time. I think I've played Metal Gear Solid more than any video game of all time. It's either that or Resident Evil 4. But this is an endlessly replayable game for me, even with the old school PS1 graphics. And I was a big fan of the Twin Snakes as well. Just want to throw that out there. I thought that was badass. But Metal Gear Solid was the video game that blew my mind. If there was one game that literally blew my mind in my lifetime, it was this one, because I was stuck with, you know, the Sega Genesis era of stuff and Nintendo 64, and you know, even the original, some of the original PlayStation games were still along those lines, to where gameplay felt like it was this thing. And then I played Metal Gear Solid and it felt like it was something else. It felt more like a movie. It felt like it had blown the doors off and become something bigger than it ever was. And talking specifically on this game, it's just the main character of Solid Snake is awesome, one of the greatest protagonists of all time. I love the storyline and the twists and reveals that come along with it. The gameplay, the very simple, just stealth action. The Shadow Moses, I think, is one of my favorite video game locations of all time, and I just have nostalgic vibes every time I jump back into the first couple chapters of this game and crawling through the vents and everything like that. All of the villains in this are probably my favorite boss battles of all time, and 3 has some that rival that. The whole twists and everything involving the end with, like, you know, Malcolm Miller.
This is McDonald Miller.
McDonald Miller. McDonald Miller.
Revealed to be Liquid Snake the whole time, which kind of blows your mind, even though it was kind of right in front of your face. The way that the game just escalates the gameplay as you go on, with the backtracking, having to go get the PSG-1 so you can come back and take out Sniper Wolf, and then the torture sequence and the multiple endings that the game had, which as a kid was a bitch for me to get the Meryl Survives ending, because I could never press the damn button fast enough. But This is a game that is just a perfect game to me. Even as these games have gone on to be way more expansive, I mean, you compare what Metal Gear Solid was to what Phantom Pain is, this is much bigger. But what Metal Gear Solid was to me was like this life-changing experience, and it will always be valued to me for that. And I will always be able to replay this game and just visit those nostalgic vibes that I had playing this on the original PS1, just mind-boggled at what they were able to do and how they were able to expand what I thought a game was. I mean, just even small things like having Psycho Mantis tell you to put your controller down and he's gonna, use his psychic powers and he vibrates it and you're like, what the hell? And he can read games from your memory card and tell you your past. And even things like whenever you have the little key card that you have to mold into different temperatures and having to go to the cold to plug it in one time and go to the hot to plug it in one time. It's things that were just so revolutionary that it changed games forever. Not only for me, but just for the gameplay, just for the entire industry. This game was a game changer, no pun intended. So that's my ranking, guys. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'm sure I'm gonna get a lot of shit for some of my rankings and some of my explanations for it. And the games that I did not include, God forbid, I gotta fucking play 29 games before I can do a ranking. Go ahead and tell me down in the comment section below, guys, if you're a fan of Metal Gear Solid, which ones are your favorite and your least favorite. If you want to include all the games that I didn't include, by all means, include it down below. Let me know what you think. Be sure to like and share this video and hit that subscribe button on the way out if you enjoyed this one and want to see more. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.